Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday morning, November the 11th. It's Veterans Day, so I want to give thank you to all of our veterans who have served and have sacrificed for our freedom, and thank you for your service. And I pray that today that you will feel and experience the honor that you deserve. So thank you for your service. Let me say good morning to everybody. Good morning to John and Wendy and to Lori and Pat. I don't see my mom on here, but there you are, Ma. Hey, good morning. I love you. Good morning, Mama. Usually yours is right at the top of the list, like as you're like at the welcoming everyone in. Good morning to Ruti and to Elva. Buenos dias. And good morning to Steve and to Jim and Sarah and Nicole. And let's see here. And we've got good morning to Barbara and to Sonia Valenzuela and to Ron and Amy. And it says to Nana. So good morning, Nana. And good morning to Kathleen and to Carol. Good morning to you guys as well. All right, well, let's go ahead and this morning we're going to be looking at Psalm 101. Psalm 101, boy, it's a short one, but it's only 8 verses long. But it's a really good one, and it's one of the royal psalms. Let me get there. It's a royal psalm. So, you have lots of psalms of David when David is running for his life, when he's in the pit, when you have Psalms of David when he's running from the king, but this is when David is king, maybe early on in his kingship, and what David is expressing here is so there's this recognition that he has, right, that as king, that he's really a vassal king, that he's a regent, that he is a king who's been entrusted by the one who is the king over all. And so really that's what you see here in his desire, is he's not seeking to usurp kingship from God, but to lead as God would have him to lead. So it's this really beautiful expression. None of us are kings, right? None of us are kings or rulers over nations, and yet we all have areas in our lives over which we have been given dominion. Areas in your life in which you have been given rule, and the question is, in that place, with what God has entrusted to you and to me, will we seek to rule in every dominion that he's given us, every domain that he has entrusted to our care, according to his ways? And so that's really what you see expressed by David here. And so it opens up, Psalm of David. He says, I will sing of chesed and justice. It says chesed and justice, and chesed, his God's covenantal love, and his mishpat, his justice, the way that he deals with humanity. And that injustice is this encompassing the way that God deals with the weak, and he deals with those that are on the edges, those who are not strong, that the Lord himself is a God whose foundation, the foundation of his throne, is truth and justice. And so David opens up saying, you know what, my song, I'm going to sing of your character, Lord, of your chesed and your justice to you, Adonai. To you, and there's this emphasis of to you, I will make music. I will sing praises. He says Azmirah, which is I'm going to make music. This is going to be a song, and it is to you. There's this the king David is bowing before the king, and he's going to sing of the character of God. And so now he makes this commitment in verse 2. He says, We read in the TLV, it says, I will behave wisely in the way of integrity. When will you come to me? I walk in my house with integrity in my heart. So one of the things when in these 8 verses today, one of the things that you end up seeing in the Hebrew are areas of repetition, language that's used, like here in verse 2, that will be used later. And so he opens up, though, saying, askila, this word, I will, where it says behave wisely, which is it's just fine, of course. The word sakal means to make wise or to act with insight and to look for insight and understanding so that you can have success. That's what it really is saying. I'm going to be really careful because I want to succeed. I'm going to pursue wisdom. That's kind of encompassed in this language. Is I'm going to really be careful and seek to be wise to walk in the way, to be wise in the walk of tamim, in b'derech tamim, in the way of integrity, right? So this is a key word that's in this psalm, integrity. Is to be sound and healthy, whole, complete, perfect, to walk in a way that is whole and complete. And when we think of integrity, we think of honesty, which is a critical component. Obviously, it's a reflection of integrity. There's a thoroughness to integrity that when you talk about, you can look at a beautiful home, but the question does, when the shaking happens, has the integrity of the home been, and has it been affected? Have the internal workings, has the strength that's behind the walls been affected? Does it just look strong, or is it on the inside what it appears to be on the outside? Because if it's not, if it looks beautiful, but it's just a set for a movie, then it's going to fall over if anything comes against it. So that's kind of the idea of integrity. Is I want there to be a thoroughness, of a genuineness, that what is on the outside is what is on the inside. So when you walk in the way of integrity, it's not walking with secrets. It's not walking with trying to hide away things lest it be exposed. When David was exposed, he in his sin later, he confesses, he repents. He doesn't do a cover-up, right? He doesn't want to walk with putting up a facade. He wants to walk in integrity, and he is committed to walking in the way of the Lord in a way that is thorough. And so that he's saying, I'm going to be really careful to walk the way of, in the way of, in the walk of, in the path of integrity. And then he says, when will you come? When will you come to me? And so there's this call to the Lord, and then he continues to say, he's saying, Lord, I need you. Like, I need you. When will you arrive? When are you going to show up? When are you going to come to me? And then he says, I walk in my house with integrity in my heart. I walk in my house with integrity in my heart. Literally, he says, I walk in integrity in my heart in the center of my house. That's the language here. That's in terms of even the word order. It says et halak becharev beit, which is I walk in the center of my house, betam levavi, in integrity of heart, in soundness of heart. So this is about in the very midst, in the very center of my most private place, I walk in soundness. That's his commitment. That it's not just about, as king, reflecting, projecting something that looks good, but in the center of his house, in the midst of his dwelling, that he walks in, he's committed to walking in integrity. And so there's this commitment here because of the verbal form of halak. It's et halak, which is it's the hitpael verbal form. That doesn't really matter, other than to say it signifies an enduring, continual nature of this vow. It's saying, I will continually walk It's not merely a commitment to, walk, to comport himself in the proper way for a season, but in an enduring way, in perpetuity, that he wants to walk day after day after day in integrity, in the midst of his house where no one's looking, in the depth of himself. So look at where he wants the integrity to be. In the middle of his house, in the middle of himself. Like at the deepest level, there's a desire, not to simply be fixed on perception. That what is perceived is real, is genuine, and a commitment to walk in that way. And as this psalm continues, one of the things that I kept noticing this morning was, excuse me, I didn't take a sip of drink. One of the things I kept noticing this morning was that there are times when you're reading the psalm that there'll be a moment where you say, wait, is that David speaking, or is that the Lord speaking? Because that sounds like something the Lord would say. But is that David speaking? And it is David, but he's expressing things that the Lord would say. That when you walk in integrity, in a soundness, where your faith in the center of your heart, in the center of your house, is a genuine expression of a desire to genuinely walk out the way of the King, then you're going to sound like him. You're going to want what he wants. You're going to walk in the way that he walks. And there'll be times, isn't that what we want? We want when people hear us to go, boy, that sounds just like Yeshua. You sound just like something Jesus would say. Isn't that really what we desire to have our reputation to be? When we say, Lord, over in everything that you've given me dominion over, I am going to walk in integrity. I'm going to walk in soundness in the center of my house, in the center of my heart. I'm going to walk in soundness and wholeness, that what is on the outside is what's happening on the inside. And if there's anything, that's why he'll pray prayers like, search me, know me, test me, reveal anything and cleanse me, because of his desire to walk in genuine, real, not for show. He's not play acting, that this is the desire of his heart. And so he basically, as a king over God's people, he wants to function as God functions. I've said on multiple times that in the past, this kind of view of my behavior, the question would be, if Yeshua were walking around my house dressed up as me, where everybody saw me, but it was Yeshua, how different would his behavior be than mine? How different would his words be than mine? How different would his understanding? Would he sit and listen? Would he take the time? Would he not be inconvenienced? Would he not be irritated? What would he look like if he were disguised as me in my own home? Would someone say, "Boy, you're really different today"? If they would, if Yeshua disguised as me would cause people to say, "Boy, you're acting really differently today," that just says how far I have to go. That's our desire, right? Is to be in the place where he's given you dominion, and he's given that you would be, and people would be as though they were encountering the Lord himself, because your character is being a reflection of his character, that our character is reflecting his likeness. So David says this, he says, no base thing will I set before my eyes. Twisted behavior I hate. It will not cling to me. And so it opens up here with him saying the language is, no base thing is, it says, he opens up saying, it will not be, lo ashit leneged eni. It will not be laid out as a garment. This word ashit, which it has to do with like laying out, to set in order, like you lay out your clothes for the day, right? That before, and then neged means to unveil or to uncover before my eyes. That what's going to be laid out before me is not going to be a word. It says base thing here, but it's debar belial, a word Belial. You know, when you talk about when the devil is called Belial, but it means worthlessness and emptiness, a wearing out. That the enemy comes, Belial comes with emptiness, with its bala, of vanity. So no emptiness is going to be, a word of emptiness is going to be laid out before me. And then he says, asasatim, like deeds of deviation, deeds of crookedness, works of that deviate, that turn off the path. He says, I hate as an enemy. It will not dabach. It will not cling to me. So when he talks about the base, no base thing or empty words, this could be also his commitment as a king, in terms of his role as judge in legal matters as well. That he promises not to give ear to empty words. That he's not going to let those things laid out, that he is committed to walking in mishpat, in justice. Verse 4 continues, it says, a perverse heart, a heart that is crooked, a heart that is uneven, will depart from me, right? It will stop, it will turn aside, sur, it will cease turn aside from its course, from me. I will know nothing evil. Evil ra lo eda. Evil I will not know. I will not be intimate with evil. So here's the thing. So what you admire, what you admire often becomes kind of a harbinger of your future actions, right? What you love, what you look after, what you run after, or you admire, you look up to, you're like, oh, that's nice. Becomes a picture often of what you will eventually become. What one admires will have a tendency to cling to a person. So the king says, I'm not going to honor the deeds of those who oppress, and I'm not going to give falseness and emptiness, anything that turns aside from your path, Lord. I don't want any of that to cling to me. I want to walk in purity. I want to walk in integrity. And anything that would lead me aside, I hate it like an enemy. I don't want it to cling to me in any way. I don't want the stench of it on my skin. It continues. Verse 5 says, whoever slanders his neighbor in secret, him I will silence. Right? And so whoever slanders, and it's a double use of the word, but someone who uses his tongue to slash at his neighbor, his friend, his companion, in secret, undercover, the Lord says, and see, that's the thing. I say the Lord says, David says, him, and this is emphatic, him I will silence. And this word silence is atzmit, which means to silence kind of in a permanent way. I will put an end to it. So it's often in different places where the verb, where it's used, it can mean I will destroy, but David's like, when there are those who are speaking slander against, and privately speaking slander, not to me, I'm not going to allow it. He says, I will silence it. I will put an end to it. And then it says, who has haughty eyes and a proud heart, him I will not tolerate. And again, that him is emphasis. So the one who is exalted, lifted up, proud, he says, him, he says, I will not tolerate. What I love actually here, because there's the word for that's translated as tolerate is yachal, is to be able to endure or to prevail, but it kind of means to have the power to deal with. And so David's saying, you know what, proud, like haughty, arrogant people, he basically says, I just can't deal with them. That often, when you would have the kind of people that try to surround a king, right? They try to get close. They try to get proximity to power. And because they want to lift themselves up, that their purpose is to exalt themselves. And they've got visions of grandeur, of who they can become, and I can be this, and I can be that, and I can lift myself up. Well, the Lord himself says, humble yourself in the eyes of the Lord, and he will lift you up. But the Lord opposes, he resists the proud. That when pride and arrogance and haughtiness is disgusting in the eyes of the Lord. It is so opposite his character. Yeshua says, when you see me, you've seen the Father. And Yeshua, in John 13, it says that Yeshua knew he had all power, and that all power from heaven had been given to him, and that he had come from God and was going back to God. So he got up, took off his outer garment, and got down and washed his disciples' feet. He revealed what real power looks like. And the heart of a king is not a heart that seeks to dominate and to exalt, but to humble and to lower himself. So sometimes a lot of guys will say, and I was guilty of this at different points in my life, of going, when wasn't a man supposed to be the king of his castle? Yeah, you know what? I am supposed to be the king of my castle. But I need to be a king the way this king wants to be a king like that king, that in my castle, in my domain, I need to be a king who's like this king. Not proud, not looking to exalt myself, but humbling myself. Right? To have the things that are under my authority, that under my rule, however small that domain may be, however big it may be, that it would reflect his rule, that it would reflect his heart, that it would reflect his character. And so David hates what God hates. He just doesn't have the stomach for it. And so the kind of people that would try to surround a king to exalt themselves, who have lofty eyes, trying to, they've got eyes toward lifting themselves up, he's like, I just can't. I'm not putting up with it. It's not going to happen. So now the king says this. And again, it sounds like the Lord talking. He says, my eyes are on the trustworthy of the land, to be in my company. My eyes are on the Aman, the word Aman, like amen, like the reliable, the faithful, the true. I'm looking for the true. I'm looking for others who are walking in integrity. That's what I'm looking for. Just as the Lord is looking for me to walk in integrity, I want to surround myself with people. He says, my eyes are on the lookout, basically. My eyes are on the trustworthy of the land, to sit with me, he says. But that sounds like the Lord, because that's what the Lord is on. His eyes are for the faithful to sit with him, but it's also King David's desire. His desire is what the Lord's desire is. To be, it says to be in my company. It's leshevet imadi, to sit, to dwell with me. I want my house to be full of others who are the trustworthy of the land, who are the true, who are the amen. My eyes are on the trustworthy of the land, to be with me, to be in my company. One walking in a blameless way will serve me. So here he's saying, it says, halech b'derech tamim. Someone walking in the way of integrity is the one who will stand. The word serve here, what you don't see in this translation is there's this emphatic he. It says, hu sharat. So it's he. That one, the one who's committed to walking in the way of integrity. He's saying, I'm going to walk in the way of integrity. I am going to pursue the way of integrity, the way of wholeness. And others, the one who is pursuing, who is walking the way of integrity, that's the one who will serve me. And the language for serve is to be an attendant, to minister. It's often related to priestly ministry.
But for David as the king, he's saying that's the one who I'm going to put in my positions of leadership, are those who also have a heart to walk in integrity. That's the one. So again, it's him reflecting down. As the king rules, he wants to rule as the king who reflects the rule of the king. Verse 7, no one who practices deceit will dwell in my house. So now again, this is about in the midst of my house. He says, Lo yeshev becharev beiti. He will not dwell in the center of my house, the doer of deceit, the doer of treachery, the doer of falseness. Not in the center of my house. What does he want to be in the center of his house? Wholeness, integrity. He is going to pursue that path. He's going to seek the wisdom of that. He's going to be careful to walk in integrity in the center of his house, in the center of his heart. To not just put up a facade, but to really be that. And so no one who is, they're a good actor, but when they're on their own, they don't walk in this way. I've often been disappointed. And I'm sure I've disappointed others in my own failures, but I've often been disappointed at seasons of my life where, especially as I grew older, where I would, sometimes I got close to, when I would get closer to people that I had looked up to, and then in private I would hear them say things that would reveal, like I would hear people say such ugly racist things sometimes, and ugly things about other people that or joke in a way that if that person had been in the room would be so hurtful and so disappointing. And it's just this commitment to say, where David says, you know what, I don't want to be surrounded by people who are one way there and different, who practice deceit and treachery. I want to be with someone who's trustworthy. Because you can often know that the way someone's talking about someone else, by the way, is how they're going to talk about you when they're not with you. The king says, in the center of my house, and then he continues, no one who utter lies will endure before my eyes. So this is like, you can't really see it. So he's saying no one who gives a word of, who utters lies is dover shacharim, the one speaking deceitfully or the one speaking in pretense, will not endure. Lo yichon, will not stand, is what it says. Will not stand exposed before my eyes, in my eyes. And so you actually you can't see it as well in English, but there's, in verse 3, David said, no word of Belial, no word of emptiness will be laid out and exposed, revealed to my eyes. And here he says, that uses almost the exact same language with a couple of differences. Here he says, no word of emptiness, no word of pretense. So before it was davar Belial, here it's dover shacharit, but both are emptiness. One is worthlessness, emptiness of the enemy, and here is a word of emptiness, of pretense. And neither one of them, he's not going to have a word of emptiness laid out before him like clothes for the day, and he's not going to have a word of pretense standing up before him, before his eyes to serve with him. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. What he wants is there to be purity, integrity, truth, that the characteristics of God are reflective not just from a public posture, but in the inner recesses of his home, in the inner recesses of his house, in the inner recesses of the way in which he rules and leads. That whatever you lead should be led not with an eye toward what will people say, but what will the Lord say? How does this reflect on you? That, Lord, what do you say? With integrity. In verse 8, he says, each morning, every morning, morning after morning after morning, the Bacharim, Boker, in the mornings, to the mornings, every morning, I silence all the land's wicked ones. I put an end to all the wicked ones of the land, to cut off from the Lord's city, from Adonai's city, every evildoer. The king promises himself every morning to renew his commitment that in whatever he has domain of, whatever he has been entrusted with, that every day is a renewed commitment to a kingdom that embodies the rule of God, a kingdom that embodies the character of God, right? So that my prayer is that this home would be filled with love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, self-control, slow to angerness, patience. That we would not be defined by the works of the flesh. And in our congregation, that when people encounter us as a congregation, my desire is to lead us in such a way that doesn't simply parrot what's out there or even what other congregations say, not to look to other congregations, but to look to Yeshua, that we want to reflect his character, his kindness, his goodness, his gentleness. What would he say? How would most religious people treat the woman at the well if they didn't know she was the woman at the well in a biblical story? Right? And how did he? How would most religious people treat the woman caught in adultery? Would they have the courage to say to everyone else, the sinless one, throw first? Would they be afraid of what other people would think of? And so that's why I don't want to reflect anybody else but Yeshua. I want to walk in integrity. We want to walk in integrity. That's what we want, right? In completeness. And we fall short. I'm not as sturdy and as pure or as whole as I want to be. And yet what I want the Lord to continually do is locate those beams in this house that are compromised and fortify them, strengthen them. But if there's rot behind any of the walls in here, that the Lord would expose that so it can be cleansed and rebuilt. That whatever is in me, because not like, well, I'm okay with mold in the walls as long as no one else sees it because it looks good, but it's going to make everyone sick. And when all we care about is perception and we don't care about reality, then what we're doing is we're infecting people with a mold that makes them sick, rather than saying, you know what, cleanse this out because we want to be a house that people can come and find healing, not sickness. And so really, I read this psalm this morning, and it just struck a chord with me about David's deepest desire to truly, 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 in the deepest part of his house and the deepest part of his heart, to walk in integrity and authenticity. And I pray that that's our desire as well. All right, well, let me say good morning to everybody else that I may have missed. All right. All right, good morning to Cheryl. Good morning, Cheryl. And good morning to Steve. And let's see, we got anybody else over here? We've got Kelly. Good morning, Kelly. I hope the manna has fed your spirit this morning. God's word is always exactly what we need to feed us every day. Good morning to Willis and to Deanna. Good morning to Lisa and Mignon and Rashad. It's good to have you guys on this morning. And I think that is everyone. All right. Did I say good morning to Elizabeth and Philip and Salome and Jesse? Good morning, you guys, as well. All right. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.